This is the Type 1 Tribe podcast, and I am your host, Samantha Hildebrandt. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes on February 18th, 2021, and now I am sharing all of my experiences and knowledge with you. So let's go. Today's interview is with Kayla Tychsen. Kayla is originally from the United States, but she currently lives in Jordan, the country in the Middle East, with her family. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes just about 1 year ago after having gestational diabetes during her pregnancy. We dive into her diagnosis story and what it's like to live overseas with a disease like type 1 diabetes. What is the hospital system like? Can you get insulin? Is it cheap? Is it expensive? We dive into all of that. So here we go. Hi, Kayla.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. So tell us a little bit about you. Where are you based?
So we are currently in Amman, Jordan. We are living abroad. So right now it's actually, I know it's morning for you, it's evening for us. We just did the whole bedtime routine. So yeah.
What made you go to Jordan?
So in 2014, I first moved to Jordan. This was pre babies and before I was married. And I was here volunteering and doing work with refugees. And then in that process, my husband and I ended up getting married and we transitioned to Lebanon. And so for the last 7 years, we've actually been in Lebanon. For the majority of that time, we were working on an education project. So we co-founded 2 elementary schools for refugees. So we've, been in the nonprofit world for several years now.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, and with all the tension in Lebanon, the last couple years have been we've kind of been in and out. So this past fall, things got pretty intense, and so we came back here to Jordan, and we're planning on staying here. So we're really enjoying it and kind of getting to know Jordan, getting reacquainted since it's been a while since we lived here. But it's
So,
been quite the adventure.
where are you from originally?
So originally I am from Southern California, San Diego. So
That's
that's
quite the switch.
quite the switch. And what makes it even like crazier is that after I was already living abroad, my whole family and my husband's family, because he's also from Southern California, they all moved out of California and to Texas. My husband's family's in Arizona, and then I have a family member in Oklahoma. But just like everyone moved. So now when we go home, we go home to the Houston area.
Okay.
So that's our where we are, where all our family is, and where we go home to. But it doesn't, not the home that we grew up in, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's tough too, because you're going home, but you're like, this is not my home technically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, we have enjoyed the Houston area, more like the North Houston. So it's been fun to get to know like another part of the country because California and Texas are also just so different. So
Yes, they are. Yes. Oh my gosh, and that's so funny because I'm like, this episode was not that's supposed to be about this, but I'm like, oh, I just want to ask you all these questions now about living abroad, but we'll get there. So I know you are a type 1 diabetic.
I am.
So tell us
And
your story.
yeah, so I was also diagnosed as an adult, which I know you were as well. Um, but I guess I'll back up a little bit. So, I think like most of us who, especially maybe those who like were diagnosed as adults, like I never knew anyone with type 1 diabetes growing up. Like that was just not on my radar at all. Um, I did, however, have gestational diabetes in both of my pregnancies. And so we were living in Lebanon at this time. And, I mean, but that's kind of normal. I mean, I had other friends that had gestational diabetes, and you just, yeah, you know that like you just have to manage it while you're pregnant, and then it goes away after the baby's born. And so um I was and still am pretty crunchy. So in both my pregnancies, I was very committed to like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like manage this with, nutrition and exercise. And with my first pregnancy, it was really easy. I was more so, it was easy to be very strict with my diet and to like cut out all carbs. And I, yeah, it felt easy. But obviously, my second pregnancy, I now have a toddler and I'm pregnant. And so it was just a lot more challenging to figure it all out, to have the energy, to make the choices that I needed to make. Like I did do pretty well, and both, they were both, a good birth weight and all of that, but and healthy. But yeah, one, having a toddler, being pregnant, and then also now looking back, realizing that it was probably more than gestational diabetes that was already in play. I just had no idea. And so one interesting thing just about my um, births. So, obviously the doctor was very aware with gestational diabetes, checking the, size of the baby and all of that as the pregnancy progressed. And all was normal throughout. But when my second daughter was born, she did have that low blood sugar at birth. And actually, I won't get into all this, but she was also born in the car on the way to the hospital. So, yeah. So it was just a wild birth. Like, but we get to the hospital and they're checking us, and so they checked her and she did have low blood sugar. And I obviously, like, I mean, that's a big deal, right? Like um the baby can like have seizures, like, I mean, they're just not good. But I had read an article that had talked about just this idea of instead of going right to the like sugar water to bring up that blood sugar, just giving a little bit of time for breastfeeding to see if it came up on its own. And obviously, like, if it was an issue, like, give my baby whatever she needs. Like, first priority is her health and her life. But I did ask the doctor, I was like, like, I would really love to try breastfeeding if you think that that would be safe. And she was like, yes, like breastfeed for an hour and we'll check again. And sure enough, like that blood sugar came right up. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I think, yeah, that was really helpful for me to know in that time, to just, really focus on breastfeeding and getting that sugar up that way. But anyways, so after both my, after that my second child was born, I did not think about diabetes again, like never, gave it another thought. Interestingly enough, though, somewhere in that process, it might have been between my two children, my brother, who was in his like late 20s, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And we were all like, what? Like, just like shocked and like, what is that? And yeah, just I mean, it was such a huge surprise because, like I said, we didn't like know anyone, we didn't have any family members. So, but obviously you just kind of write that off. Like that was never a clue of anything else. It's just like, wow, that is so crazy. So, just hearing the things that he had to do to adjust to that lifestyle. But honestly, I never really asked too much about it because I don't know, it's just like, oh wow, like, and you have to live with that. Like, I mean, all the like sympathy, but it's like, oh man, that sucks. And that
Well,
was
you
kind
don't,
of
when you don't have it yet, you don't understand. So you're just like, oh, whatever.
exactly. Like, that's too bad for you. And that you don't really know what else to say. So, fast forward to, in 2021, we had kind of just like one thing after another. So, my second daughter was born October 2020. 2021 was just a lot of stresses, like personal, family, in Lebanon at the time, in our work, like it was just really stressful. And at the end, well, yeah, towards the end of that year, I was like, I need a vacation. Like I was so burnt out. I was like, I need a vacation. Like, let's get away. We went to Greece and like I thought, okay, I can come down from like just all the responsibilities, all the things that were going on with the schools that we were running. And but yeah, I mean, it only helped so much, right? And so we went right back into the stressful situation. The beginning of 2022, I hit my limit of like just fatigue, right? And I'm just thinking this is burnout. This is exhaustion. I'm a mom. Like I was dealing with anxiety. There's just like all this stuff. So we decided to take some time in the States. So the beginning of 2022, we went back to the States, went to the Houston area, rented a house, and I was like, okay, like we can just rest, we can like get back on our feet. Well, it's like 5 months later, and I was still like, I can't get out of bed, but I have to. Like, I have two small children, like I feel like I can't get out of bed, but I need to. And and then all of a sudden, one week in June 2022, I am driving my kids to school or driving my one of my daughters to her preschool. And one day I'm like totally fine. And the next day I can't read and I can't read license plates. I'm like, that's weird. I guess I need to like go get my eyes checked. Do I need glasses? But like the more I thought about it, the more I was like, no, your eyesight doesn't just like deteriorate in a day. And then that week, like, was getting up to pee every night, multiple times a night, and just the peak of fatigue. And I remember my husband and I were in a car one day, and I was like, I think there's something wrong. Like, I think this is not normal. Like, there's something wrong. I don't, and so some things kind of clicked in that conversation, and I think it was my husband who was like, kind of sounds like diabetes, like call your brother. I was like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. I get on the phone with him and tell him, what's going on. He's like, oh my goodness, like go to a pharmacy, get an AccuCheck. And I was like, okay, what is that? And actually, I did know what an AccuCheck was because I had used it in my pregnancies, but I was like, okay, like, yeah, sure. Um, it was my blood sugar was 550. And I think that AccuCheck, it might have capped at 550. I'm not sure. So who knows? But just me being like in the space that I was, I still didn't really get what was happening. The first thing my brother said was like, go to a hospital right now. And I was like, okay, I've, been fine. Like, I don't know. I just didn't understand the severity of the situation. But I was like, you know what? Okay, starting now. And I was thinking like, okay, maybe type 2 diabetes. Like, I don't know. I couldn't grasp that like this is what was happening. Um, and so anyways, I ended up, getting labs back and there it was an unclear like they didn't check my antibodies or anything, right? So they're just checking like my A1C and they're like, yeah, this is bad, you need to get on metformin. And I wasn't meeting with an endocrinologist at that point. Like I hadn't, it took like several months too to like get in to see an endocrinologist, or at least a few months. So they, the doctors just saying it was really encouraging me to get on metformin, which I didn't do, and I'm so thankful. But I actually didn't do it because I like had heard about the side effects and these kinds of things, and I was like, I don't want to get on something that's like gonna have all these side effects. But I was really determined. I was like, you know what? I did this with my pregnancy. Like I can cut out all carbs. And so that's what I did. And actually, by the time I got in to see the endocrinologist, and then he did my blood work, and then I'm pretty sure at that, or maybe it was the next time that he then checked the like my C peptide and my antibodies, but I had brought my A1C down to like, I think it was like in the sixes. So that first A1C with the first doctor was in the tens. I think it was like a 10.3 or something like that. And in just a few months, like brought it down to in the sixes, like through, just through like changing my diet, cutting carbs and doing it that way. Thankfully, because I know so many people that are wrongly diagnosed with type 2. Thankfully, this idea of type 1.5 was thrown out there to me, although I really did not understand what it was. Like, even though they were like, oh, it's 1.5, and at that time too, I feel like there are more YouTube videos nowadays on like what type 1.5 is. But I remember going on YouTube and I'm like, I still don't understand like what is this? And so I had this idea that I would be able to manage it like maybe through diet forever,
Mhm.
or that I could manage it like type 2 and that would work. It wasn't, yeah, and there's been so many ups and downs. So for a while I was able to manage it without insulin. And then another season of like some stress, and all of a sudden my glucose is super high and there's nothing I can do to control it. And so it was in that season, I'm like, okay, I need to figure this out. And that was about like a year, maybe like a little over a year later, where I was like, okay, I do, or no, maybe it's actually like 2 years that I was like, okay, I do need to figure this out. What I'm doing isn't working. And that's when I was able to get some good information that was like, no, remember, you have the antibodies. This is type 1. Like your body is killing your beta cells. It's slowly,
Yep.
and but eventually, like this is just the reality that you will have to start insulin. And so, anyways, it was a year ago that I started on just long acting insulin. And so then that was a whole process. Um, and so I'm still just on long acting insulin. And I know that, yeah, eventually I'm gonna have to make that transition, what that transition will look like. Yeah, so it's interesting. I feel like in some ways, I'm like, oh, it can actually be kind of nice when it's just like, bam, it all hits you, and you just have to like do it all 100%, like my brother.
Mhm.
But like me, I feel like I'm adjusting every couple years or every year to this like new normal. It's really interesting.
That is very interesting because I know some other people that are similar to you that just have to take, one shot a day or whatever the case may be. But are you still eating very low carb?
So I have done different things in different seasons and in our transition like from Lebanon in the fall there was kind of more of a like okay I'm just surviving like and so my glucose levels were higher and I wasn't being as like careful or paying as much attention. Because also in other seasons, like I kind of would be able to eat whatever I wanted in some ways. I don't know. So it's just been interesting how management has changed. But right now, I am eating very low carb. I've actually been able to like decrease my insulin a lot, um, which has been good.
Do you
But
want to be eating carbs? Or are you like totally fine not eating carbs?
so I it's a yeah, it's a good question. I think um right now what I'm focused on is wanting to keep my glucose levels in range
Mhm.
and practicing keeping them in a tighter range. My husband and I would like to have another child, and so I feel like I'm like, I have never done pregnancy in this
Mm.
way, like with insulin, I know that, yeah, it'll be more, yeah, just more will go into it. But I do feel like maybe it would be easier to maybe stay in range, especially in a pregnancy where then maybe you're getting more insulin resistance and those kinds of things. I don't know. But
Mhm.
I do feel like there's such a learning curve and there are so many like unknowns. So I do have a lot of questions. So to answer your question though, I do want to have a sustainable lifestyle and one that's enjoyable.
Mhm.
So I don't want to just like never eat a carb. Like that is not my goal. Um,
I mean, even like an apple, like that's carbs. So,
exactly. So yes, my goal is like not to have no carbs and just my goal is not to try to have as little insulin as possible. But um yeah, I don't know. I think I am just in a season too where I am feeling a lot better health wise and can be a little bit more disciplined. And so I'm like, okay, then that's what I want to do for this season. So
yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's the good thing is you can change it. If you decide, you want to eat a bunch of pizza, you can get some fast-acting insulin.
exactly.
So, how is the insulin situation in like all these other countries? Like, how do you get the insulin from these pharmacies? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's pretty widely accessible. So I have only ever taken Tresiba. That's what my endocrinologist put me on last year and and I can find it anywhere here, which is really nice.
Is your doctor
Yeah,
based in these countries or is it a United States doctor?
so I have an endocrinologist in the States. I did find one here too in Jordan to be able to work with someone and see someone face to face and just really dialogue through things, especially because I do feel like I have so many questions when it comes to pregnancy. Um, and so, yeah, and this endo has a nutritionist too, which I've never um, met with a nutritionist. Like that was never part of my, management previously. And so, yeah, I'm like, this is really nice just to like have someone to ask questions. Um, even just like the other day, I was like, okay, sometimes I can like hang out in the 70s and 80s and I'm totally fine. But then other times I'm in the 70s and I'm like, dropping, do I wait till 70 to treat a low? Or like, even those kinds of questions where it's just like helpful to have someone to like bounce ideas off of. Like, do I wait till 69 to like have a,
And you're
treat?
still so new. I mean, you're still like very new diagnosis.
I feel like yeah, I feel like I'm such a newbie. I can't believe it's been about a year because I do feel like I'm like, I still don't like know all the.
Oh, the first year is the hardest because you don't like you have no idea what's going on and you just are like figuring it out as you go. I mean, I'm in year 4 and I'm still like figuring things out, so I don't think it ever ends, but I feel like after the first year you start to feel a little bit more comfortable with it.
That's helpful to know. That's really helpful to know. And I know it'll be a whole nother transition then when add in the fast acting.
Mhm.
Um, which I think that it does feel overwhelming. I think that's why I've like hesitated. I'm like, okay, I'll, manage it and do low carb and kind of, but I know that so many people do it and you can do it. Like, I can do it. I know I can.
Oh, you absolutely can. Yes. Yeah. It is a little, it's hard to figure out because certain foods hit you at different times and you have to take only a little bit up front and like later. But like you figure it out through trial and error. Like you take one, then you notice you drop and you're like, okay, next time I won't do that. And it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
So what is
Yeah.
like the cost of the insulin overseas? Is it, I'm assuming cheaper than the United States?
So it is cheaper. Man, I am not a numbers, like I'm not a remember numbers kind of person. Yeah, it is cheaper. We actually pay out of pocket here too. So everything is out of pocket. We do have insurance, but it's mainly just for emergencies and those kinds of things, bigger things. And so it's much cheaper
I would
than
imagine.
when we were living in the States. And I can also get CGMs here, which is really nice, and pay for those out of pocket as well. And it's like the same that we were paying in the States with insurance. Like
Yeah,
the copay is the same that we're just paying for like, the whole thing here. So, um, yeah, I am thankful that it's not too
what are
bad.
like the hospitals like there? Like if you like were, let's say would have been diagnosed in Jordan, for example, like is it a good hospital system?
Yeah, there are really good hospitals. Actually, Jordan in particular is people, I guess they call it medical tourism. And
Oh,
so people actually come from other countries to like have their like surgeries and procedures here. So yeah, and we actually happen to live like right down the street from one of the best hospitals, and that's where my endo is, and so it's just super convenient. Um, but yeah, the medical system is pretty good here, thankfully.
that's great. And then, so I know you mentioned you have 2 daughters and hopefully a third one day or a third child. Do you have any fear of them getting type 1 diabetes?
So yeah, I do. And I think I don't have as much currently, but when was it? I don't know, maybe a year ago or so, I just started thinking like what if they or even like because at that time we were in the States and we were getting ready to move back over here. And it was like, what if they get it? And like, just worst case scenario, um, replaying. And so we did get them screened. And I was like, okay, like it came back negative and was like, this is great. Like, felt really good about that. But then I found out someone that I know, they screened their kids and then at some point their son was diagnosed with type 1 after being screened and being negative. So I thought that was really interesting. I was like, okay. But I would say it's not something I worry about a lot at this point. Um, not something that I think about a lot at this point. I think yeah, it would be really hard to have a child. Like I think about all the finger pricks and just all the things. And I know that that would be a huge challenge. But again, like so many families do it, so many kids do it, and you just learn to adjust and um yeah, things just change. And so I think I have less fear. Although I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know if any parent obviously like would want that for their child. So, I hope that that doesn't never happen to them. But at the same time, I know we could do it if it did.
Right, right. And I feel like you're right. Like you can't stress, or you can try not to stress about it because if it happens, it happens. Like we can't control it. So it's just like it is what it is. And that's really interesting what you brought up about the screening because I spoke to somebody else about this recently and they said you have to get screened every year to like make sure that it's correct. But I'm like, well, what's even the point of doing that then?
Interesting.
Yeah, because it can change. And I'm like, well, I'm just not going to screen then, probably.
Yeah, because that's insane. I'm just thinking about the screening process too. Both my, well, no, one, my older daughter is very, very sensitive. It was, but for both of them, it was like a disaster to try to collect blood in this vial at home. Like I was like, I am not ever doing this again. It's one of those like mail away. I'm like, if we ever do this, we're gonna go into a lab because this is just, I'm not a medical professional. I should not have been the one that was trying to do this.
Yeah, yeah, man. Well, what's one piece of advice you'd give to somebody who was recently diagnosed?
My advice would be to have hope, especially like as a parent, right? Like there was so much that changed and so much to try to like navigate while I'm trying to be there for my kids. And there were so many like weeks and months, right? I mean, it was like 5 months in the States until I was diagnosed, but I was dealing with fatigue for like that year before. Um, like I did a lot of parenting like on the couch just because I could not get up. Like, and it's like I'm so sad thinking about it because there were so many times where, my child wanted to go to the park or wanted to go on a walk or wanted me to come play with them. And I just could not do that. Like I wanted to, but I physically could not get up just from being so exhausted and fatigued. And, but you know what? I was able to find ways to connect with my kids on the couch. Like we did so much cuddling up and reading books together. And that was like the only way that I could play. That was like my way of playing. But I was like, okay, this is how I can connect with them. This is how I can, play. And it doesn't look the way I want it to. Um, but they're still getting filled up. Like I can still be, as present as I can, even if it doesn't look the way I think it should. It's not perfect by any means. And it never is perfect, like even for a healthy mom. There are always so many stresses and so many things, but I think my advice, particularly to like a mom that's diagnosed, is that it does get better. Our energy, her energy, your energy, our energy comes back, and that even in these, times of, um, different challenges, whatever it might look like, we can find what works for us and make sure that we're being taken care of. We're taking care of our needs, so that we can, take care of our children. So, yeah.
That's a great tip. I totally agree. Because there's been times when I've been like low, but my baby's crying, and I'm like, what do I do? But I always correct myself first and then go grab the baby because you need to be your best self for the child.
Yes. And that's such a hard place to be in, but it's like it would not serve your baby to like pass out and, not be able to respond or, even, yeah. So I'm so glad that you do that. Yeah. And it's been such an interesting process to navigate, right? Like I was a mom and I was so used to doing things a certain way. And so then to have to shift to like, no, I'm sitting here and my child's on my lap, she's crying, but like my um alarm is going off. I need to treat my low like, and navigating that is so interesting as a new mom, and then also as someone that's like been used to doing things a certain way and parenting a certain way, but now you're having to adjust. So but yeah, exactly. I'm so glad that you have that mindset too of like, yes, in order to be my best self and to give my child what they need, like my needs need to be met. So,
Yes, absolutely. It's a challenge, but we're all very capable and we can do it.
uh,
So, how do people get in touch with you if they want to reach out?
you can find me on Instagram at Your Conscious Parent Coach. And then my website also is www.yourconsciousparentcoach.com. I am a parent coach. So I, love walking alongside parents, and particularly I'm looking forward to doing more with parents who are struggling and moms who are struggling, particularly with health and with things like type 1 diabetes or fatigue or any of these, other things where we're navigating these chronic illnesses with while trying to parent. And so, yeah, but I love walking alongside parents just to really help them define their values and parent in a way that's respectful of the child and their development, and really, helping families to see what they like dream for their family, and really like bring that joy back to their families. So that's what I'm passionate about. So feel free to, if anyone wants to connect, head to my website or Instagram, and I'd love to connect there.
That's amazing. And I love that you're doing that. And I definitely think a lot of moms out there living with type 1 diabetes could use your help because it is a challenge. So I'm glad that you're offering those services.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Love chatting.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really great.
Are you tired of having roller coaster blood sugars where your blood sugar goes up to 300 and then it goes back down to 60 and then maybe back up to 185 and then down to 70, and holy moly, it can get super tiring and super annoying having roller coaster blood sugars like that? Well, if you are looking to have better, more stable blood sugars, check out my ebook below. I describe how you can better manage your blood sugars day in and day out. There is insulin management tips in there, better exercise techniques and strategies, food and nutrition information. And it's really just a great ebook to have on hand when you have blood sugar questions that you want to know and you don't have to do a ton of research online to figure it out. This ebook is perfect in those situations. And the best part about this ebook is because it's an ebook and not an actual physical book, whenever I make changes or additions to this ebook, you have access to those changes. It is a lifetime access ebook, so you have it for the rest of your life and you can use it as many times as you want. So go ahead and check that with the link below. See you next week. Bye.